Hi everyone. So this is a video for residential developers, and I'm going to be showing you a number of features within the platform that's really going to help you find land, source land, and sort of run suitability reports on particular parcels for residential. So if we start off, we zoom in and we can turn on the land registry boundaries. Everything will then get split into colours, as you can see on the right hand side, relating to company, corporate body, local authority, housing association and private ownership. So if we click on a particular parcel, we can then see down here we've got the company address and their registered address as well. So this is really useful, if you find a parcel of land, you've got direct access to exactly who owns it when it's in that company ownership, and you've got a link here straight through to company's house as well. You can, of course, see the area in hectares, meters squared, and acres. We then also show you the buildable area and potential units. Now, these are very indicative figures, but the buildable area is worked out by the amount of land that isn't covered by a planning constraint. And then where this could be quite useful, which is the potential units, this is worked out by the average size of a property. So this is completely, we can change this for you. So at the moment you can see it's 130 meters squared. But if you wanted to change that, we can do, just to make your figures a bit more realistic for you. Within this as well, you can then click on this planning tab up here, so you can see if there's been any previous planning applications on the site. You can then click on this and it will open up all of the further details, and you've got a link straight through to the actual planning application on the authority website. You've then got the value tab up here. So this will give you a benchmark land value and then some local sales values as well, and then what the perceived market value is, at the time. So that's a really useful tool. We've then got the planning applications. So if you wanted to have a look at any previous historic or current planning applications, we've got all of this data in here as well. Now we've got all of these tabs that are available, so you can filter it by size. So this is worked out by if it's more than 40 dwellings, it will be classed as a large application. Between 10 and 40 is medium, and then less than 10 will be a small. You can then filter it by the status. So if you're looking at permitted sites, you can select that. A specific type of consent, whether it's a full or an outline consent, you can choose that. If you've got any keywords in here, such as residential, for example, you can put those in there. And then if you're looking for projects with a specific number of dwellings, again, you can select those in there. We've got the submitted date and decision date. So, as we know, the planning applications will last for 3 years. You could put it back to the 3 years, or, if you were looking to focus on, in terms of being a residential developer, if you're looking at projects that had a planning consent that you could start to implement straight away, you can then select a decision date of maybe within the last year or so. So definitely have a look around these features. We've then got the HMLR price paid data. So as we can see, we can flick this on. So we've got, again, very similar to the planning applications, all of these sort of specific criteria you can select. So if I click on one here, I can see the transfer selling date, and then the price paid as well, and when that was. You can then, whether it's a established building or a new build property, you've then got the property type as well that you can select. So if you're looking for just detached, the tenure, freehold or leasehold, and then if you were looking for a specific price as well, you can do that in there. So if we move on to sort of sourcing the land and almost running appraisals on it, so we've got hundreds and hundreds of different layers available in here. So some of the key ones for residential developers, you might have a look at some of the flood zones. So if we put on, let's say, flood zone 3, we can see that. Some of the other things you might be looking for is greenbelt. Put that on there, so we can see straight away that all of these parcels of land are in the greenbelt, so might not be useful for residential development. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of different layers in here, so certainly have a look through and see, work out exactly which ones are going to be best for you. You can then save these layers down. So, if I'm looking at Greenbelt and Flood Zone 3, although there's not too many to put on each time, if you built up a vast selection of them, you can click on this flag and you can then save your current view. So if I just called this residential. You can then save that. So then within here in my views, you can always click on residential and it will always bring up those active layers. So that's a really, really useful tool. So if I turn these off, you could be then, in terms of looking for your site, so there's a number of ways that you could do this. If you're looking for houses with large gardens, for example, you could turn on the land registry and you can then start to have a bit of a manual search through here. Now, if the colors start to sort of get in the way and you want to be able to see below them, you can click on this paintbrush and let's say we choose this one, for example, everything will then go white. So you can start to then have a look through houses with the large gardens. A better way of doing this is by using the Site Finder tool. So over here on the left hand side, you can then search by land registry boundaries, select an area, let's say a drawn area. And let's move over to this way. If we just draw our radial tool in here, so what we can then do is we can put in our criteria. So we could say, right, if we're looking for houses with large gardens that we could put, maybe a couple of units in the garden, we could search for parcel sizes between 1 and 3 acres. Now you can again do things like you don't want it to be in the flood zone, so it does not intersect with flood zone 3. Let's do this one. Now there's absolutely no limit as to how many that you put in there, so you can be as specific as you want. But what we can now see is straight away we've got 61 results. So we've got 61 parcels of land that are between 1 and 3 acres that don't intersect with the flood zone. So from here, you can then export this as a CSV file, or you can then run an analysis. Now we've got a built-in residential analysis profile. And if we run this, what it's going to do is it's going to almost red, amber, green these particular sites. So it's going to work out what is a very low risk scheme for residential development, what's a medium risk, but then also what is what's a very high risk. So as we can see here, these very high risk ones, some of them intersect with the green belt, ancient woodland and everything like that. But what we would want to do is, if there were any, we would want to start with the very low risk schemes. Now, these are completely customizable, these planning constraints. So what we've done is we've built up and sort of put into the system, if it intersects with this planning constraint, it could be a low risk, or this is why it's a medium risk, but we can completely customize this for you. So from these 61 sites, we can see that we've got 3 that are very low risk for residential development. You can select all of these, or you could even just select these 3 here. And then what you can do is you could save all of the sites. So if I just do the one for now into the workspace, they then get an individual site card. So that's a really, really useful tool for save the manual site finding. What we have then got is the planning alerts. So if I was wanting to track a specific area and I knew that I wanted to buy a site with a planning consent that I could implement straight away, you can select your area, radial tool, just in here. Again, very similar to what you would have seen earlier. You can then get as specific as you like with the size, the status, the consent, the number of dwellings, and you can then choose to receive this on a daily or weekly basis. You will get an email, and then you'll also get alerts over in the My Planning Alerts section in here. Obviously, whether you choose for that to come through weekly or daily, but they'll all be sitting in here. So a really good way of tracking planning. We then also have our comparables tool. So again, you can put your specific criteria in here. If I do our radial tool, I'll just click calculate. I won't put any sort of criteria in here, but what it will do is it will calculate, what the average pound per square foot is and everything like that. Again, I would always try and suggest being quite specific with all of the criteria that you put in here, because as you can see, it's this is averages calculated from 1,744 properties. So I've then got all of this information that sits in here, but definitely look to put in a specific price if that's what you're looking for, whether that's a new build or not, the property type. But then you can also export this as a CSV file, which will give you all of that information. And then another way of searching or looking for land as well would be our land assembly tool. Now, let's say in terms of a residential developer, if you're looking for perhaps longer term strategic sites, if you click on our land assembly tool, what you can start to do is build up a land assembly. So if we were looking at, let's say these ones for residential development, we can then click on this, and we can start to add them all in. So as we can see, all of the title numbers will appear on the left-hand side here. We can see the overall area, again, in hectares, meters squared, and acres for those land parcels that I've selected, the buildable area and potential units, as I spoke about earlier, and then you can create a site card. And again, with this, you can select your analysis profile as residential. You can click Save, and over in the workspace will sit our land assembly we've drawn. Now we can see up here that it's the risk profile of residential, and we can see it's very high risk for residential development. And as we scroll down, we can then start to see a lot of the site constraints, again, purely relating to that land assembly that we've drawn, any previous planning applications and things like that. So again, a really, really useful tool. Have a play around. Any questions, any queries, please do get in touch with myself or a member of the team, and we'll be happy to help. Thank you.